It's Ocean Drive in Coney Island.
Ocean Drive is the only luxury rentals in New York with a spectacular ocean view. You wake up in the morning and breathe that ocean air. I'll certify that you're going to live 10 years longer. When I became successful, I wanted to live on the ocean. If you have worked hard, you deserve an apartment on Ocean Drive too. Go to oceandrivenyc.com and reward yourself.
If you're a policeman, fireman, doctor, nurse, or teacher, you qualify for a limited time offer at oceandrivenyc.com. Terms and conditions apply.
In the squadron, they called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I'm looking at Donald Trump. He just came out of the court, and he's busting on the judge, busting on the prosecutor, as he should be, as is his right. This is still America. You're allowed to complain about the system, right? Suddenly, you're not allowed to. If you're Trump, you can't do it. If you're Trump, you just got to take it. You just got to take it and make sure, and the system is going to work, right? Yeah, the system. Well, part of the system is being able to shoot your mouth off and say what you want and when you want, how you want. Well, he's doing it. It could upset the jury. No, it could. Number one, there's no jury. There should be a jury. There's no jury. What kind of trial is this anyway? Judge Engoron. It is a complete and total scam. Everybody knows it. Everybody in New York. I can prove it. Oh, by the way, that building down on 40 Wall Street, that he undervalued. They say he undervalued that building, and it was worth $200 million, but Trump said it was worth $500 million. Well, the building is worth at least that. I don't know real estate. I don't come from that world. I do glance at the real estate pages. I glance at them, and I find it intriguing. You know, in my fantasy world, you know what I would love to do? I would love to buy a great big office building. I would. I'd love to write a check. So I kind of like, if I won the $1 billion lottery, I would probably buy a couple of office buildings. And I'd give myself a really big office on the top floor, or, you know, I don't know. I love the idea. I'd make sure that the elevator looked a certain way. I'd make sure that the doormen wore a certain uniform and had a certain kind of experience when it came to, and I would just make sure I would want to do that. I'm not going to do anything radically different. Anyway, I've thought about this more than I should because I don't think becoming a multi-billionaire is in the cards for me. However, one has these thoughts. So I've always kept an eye on what the hell costs what when it comes to office buildings. And I have a pretty damn good idea what things cost. And I developed this by looking at the damn paper. I remember when Jared Kushner bought a building for $1 billion in 2007 on 6th Avenue. It was a big freaking deal. Top of the sixes. It's $1 billion. Wow. $1 billion building right here in Midtown. And it's, yep, that's what they were going for back then. And then there are ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs and turning and twisting all over like a crazy wiener package. But all that to say, when Tish James in her self-righteous Maya Angelou imitation comes out and says that 40 Wall Street was only worth $200 million, and how could Donald Trump have put it at $500 million? I just knew, she's wrong. She's absolutely wrong. And she's counting on you not knowing any better, me not knowing any better. And even if we did, what the hell are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? Are we going to file an amicus brief with the court? Are we going to are we going to write the judge? Are we going to, no, there's nothing we can do about it. What's the media going to do about it? Are they going to write that story? No. They're just going to let them flounder. They're just going to let this happen. Media used to stand up for things, stand up for principle. No, they hate Trump so much, they're not going to stand in the way of anything. And it's a damn shame. It doesn't really matter. It does matter, and it doesn't matter at the same time. I mean, have you seen these polls? Trump is on top, state after state after state, swing state, important swing states. Trump is in command. The big Democrat donor world, they're totally panicking about this. Let me see here. Nevada, Trump, 52, Biden, 41. Georgia, Trump, 49, Biden, 43. Arizona, Trump, 49, Biden, 44. Michigan, Trump, 48, Biden, 43. Pennsylvania, Trump, 48, Biden, 44. Wisconsin, Trump, 45, Biden, 47. Oh, congratulations, Joe. You won one of the states. Let's see. And when it comes to the issues, The economy, national security, and immigration. Trump is beating Biden in Nevada, 24 points, Georgia, 27 points, Arizona, 29 points, Michigan, 23 points, Pennsylvania, 22 points, Wisconsin, 8 points. Now, the phony baloney issues like democracy, democracy. Who's better for democracy? Well, after all that stuff about Donald Trump being a threat to democracy, right? And so Biden gets the edge, 1 point, 2 point, 1 point, 2 point, 1 point, that kind of thing. So could you imagine if the media were reporting honestly this election, where Joe would be? If they were reporting what you and I now know about Joe Biden, where would he be? He'd be in a total freefall. He would be in a weird way kind of where he is, which is the big guys in the party are trying to push him out. Axelrod over the weekend. Obama seems to be totally through with Joe. There's David Ignatius. The swamp, the elites in the swamp, they know that Joe can't win. But you know what? Joe is angry. He's a yeller. He's a screamer. He is the president. And these aides, they come in and they can't convince him otherwise. Now, he does have that vulnerability, the corruption, and his family. That's a big deal. You know, somebody told me, I thought I knew all of the great Joe Biden gaffes. I thought I knew all the big ones, but there's several out there that I did not that I missed, and the media hide them from us, from me, from you. There's one in 2019 where they ask him, Joe, do you have any siblings? And he goes, yes, I have a brother, and I have another brother, and I have a sister who's the love of my life. He calls his sister Valerie the love of his life. Now that's just weird. That's just crazy. I'll tell you what, Valerie, love of his life or not, is a rich woman, thanks to Joe, running all of his campaigns, every single one, since 1972. Some lady named Valerie in Delaware has become a very rich woman. He has worked this system so hard to make him and his family so rich. Now, you don't know it. I don't know it. Oh, remember a couple of weeks ago I had that guy Bill Stevenson on? Bill Stevenson was married to Jill Biden before Joe moved in on her. Bill Stevenson, great guy. Let's see. Married Jill in 1968, I think, and 1972 rolls around, and Joe is fooling around with his wife. He finds out, and, he wants a divorce right away. Anyway, he's still around. He's a great guy, Bill. I've talked to him a couple of times. We've had him on this show, and he doesn't have anything bad to say about Jill. You know, they were young, things happen, but he really despises Joe Biden because Joe has been trying to exact revenge on this poor guy for a very long time. And I've proven it. I've seen the documents. I've talked about it. They brought him in on federal charges for not paying payroll tax. He had a big business, employed like 200 people, and they accused him of not paying payroll tax. And they hauled him into federal court on April 8th. I think it was 1982. And he didn't pay his, the employees the federal tax. And you know when it was due? It was due April 1st of 1982. And he didn't pay. And April 8th, they indicted him. 8 days later, he's 8 days late with the taxes. A federal indictment. They're out to get him for a bunch of different reasons. Has a lot to do with the fact that Bill Stevenson is an honorable man, and Joe tried to humiliate him in court and lost in another matter, and Joe has been out to get him ever since. Joe and Frankie Biden and Jimmy Biden and all the rest. It's such a small town. Delaware is a state, but it's really a small town. It's smaller than Suffolk County. So why do I bring this? Oh yeah. So I've had this guy, Bill Stevenson, on this show, and, we talked, and I put him on, all the platforms I have, I've talked to Bill Stevenson. And guess what? We made a lot of news. The New York Post, the Daily Mail, everybody picked up this story that Bill Stevenson had something to say. And he was upset, and he thinks that Donald Trump is going through the same thing. And that's a juicy story, let's face it, right? It's a big story. You'd read that. Jill Biden's ex-wife is out there and talking, and he says two things: that Joe Biden had an affair with his wife while they were married, doesn't hold a grudge, but that Joe Biden is making his life hell ever since and has unleashed federal prosecutors to go after him. Now that's a story. And most people recognize it as such, except for what? The newspaper, the main newspaper in Delaware. Not a word about this. Not a word. Not a word. Joe Biden still runs Delaware. And there are people out there who are still kind of frightened of Joe Biden. Can you imagine that? Being frightened of Joe Biden? They are, and it's stay tuned. Stay tuned. Do we have anything new on, let me just do this first. Who watches the Sunday shows besides me? Anybody else watch those Sunday shows? Did you get that clip yet of, this is George Stephanopoulos being an incredible jerk. George Stephanopoulos gets $25 million a year. A year, folks. $25 million a year. You think he gets it for telling the truth? Of course not. Here he is trying to beat up on good old Steve Scalise. He was the, the Republican whip or something like that? Steve Scalise, the congressman for Louisiana, who was shot and almost killed by a leftist Bernie Sanders supporter. And in the middle of the interview, for no reason really, Stephanopoulos starts busting this guy's chops about the 2020 election. Listen to this. Cut 13.
Can you say unequivocally that the 2020 election was not stolen?
What I've told you is there are states that didn't follow their laws. That is what the state constitution, the U.S. Constitution requires. I've seen in my own state where we had to send our elections commissioner to jail years ago for fraud and corruption, and we cleaned up our act in our state. Every state ought to follow the laws that are on their books. That's what the U.S. Constitution says.
That's not what I asked. I said, can you say unequivocally that the 2020 election was not stolen?
Look, Joe Biden's president. I know you and others want to talk about 2020. We're focused on the future. We've talked about 2020 a lot. We're talking about how to get our country back on track, how to get our economy moving, how to stand up to the bad actors around the world. Xi is not slowing down in China. He's looking at Taiwan. You see what's going on in Russia. You see what Iran is doing to work with Hamas and other terrorist organizations. This administration needs to pick up the pace. They're not standing up to the bad actors around the world. They need to. We're passing bills to address this through the House. The Senate needs to take action. The president needs to take action as well. That's what we're focused on in the House.
I know that Joe Biden is president. I'm asking you a different question. Can you say unequivocally that the 2020 election was not stolen?
All right, hold on a second. So this is like the fifth question. There's a whole series before this. He keeps on going and gets exasperated. George, you know what? He's not comfortable saying it. You want to be, it's like George wants to be on the other side, right? George, he has no patience for these people. This is what we call political correctness. There is a correct way to answer that question. There's a correct way, a politically correct way. There is a right way and a wrong way. George has it in mind how you're supposed to respond to this question. Steve is doing a good job. Steve Scalise, keep going.
Told you, and you've seen this. There are states that didn't follow the laws that are on their books, which is what the U.S. Constitution says they have to do.
So you just refuse to say unequivocally that the 2020 election was not stolen?
So you want to keep rehashing 2020? We're talking.
I just want an answer to the question, yes or no.
Hey, shut up, George.
We've talked about this before, but again, will you acknowledge that there were states that didn't follow the actual state legislative enacted laws on their books, which the U.S. Constitution says they're supposed to do?
I know that every court that looked at whether the election was stolen said it wasn't, rejected those claims. And I asked you a very, very simple question. Now I've asked it, I think, the fifth time, and you can't appear to answer. Can you say unequivocally that the 2020 election was not stolen? I told you there were a handful of states that didn't follow their laws. The rest did. The rest followed. And again, states that Trump won, states that Biden won that did follow their laws. There were a handful of states that didn't follow the laws that were on the books. They went to secretaries of state to change the rules of the game, and then the voters didn't know what the rules were because ultimately the state laws weren't followed in those states. That's not what the U.S. Constitution says. At some point, we should go back to following the Constitution, George. The courts have all followed the Constitution. They all rejected the claims you just made. And I just want to say again, for the record.
Or they said there was no standing.
You cannot say that the 2020 election was not stolen. Yes or no, was the 2020 election stolen?
What I've told you is Joe Biden's the president of the United States, and right now he's failing the country on so many fronts that matter to families. We're talking about what matters to families today. You can keep talking about 2020. I'm talking about what's wrong with our country today, how to fix the problems, how to secure America's border. You don't want to talk about that because Democrat mayors across the country are talking about how broken our border is to the point where people on the terrorist watch list from some of these hostile countries are coming into our country today, not just bringing drugs that are killing young people, but people that actually want to do us harm. And this president won't take action. We've passed legislation to fix this problem, to secure our border. The president doesn't want to negotiate with us or with Democrat mayors who are telling him it's a major problem to big cities like New York that we should all be concerned about. So the president can keep talking about the past. You can. We're going to talk about the future and how to help these families who are struggling across America with high gas prices, high prices when they go to the grocery store, every other problem that they're concerned about. That's what we're focused on in this House.
And George still wasn't satisfied. He just, I like Steve Scalise a lot. And George is totally wrong. 63 court cases ruled on this and found no cheat. No, that is not true. That is a fake news talking point. You got to remember this, all right? Those cases, most of them did not make it to the merit phase where they actually evaluate what your merits are. They evaluate first, do you have a claim to make this case? If I go into Pennsylvania and sue Pennsylvania because I don't think the election was fair, they'll say, well, screw you. You're not even from here. And they did that to Rudy Giuliani. Yeah, screw you. You're not a Pennsylvanian person. No, you have no standing to make this case. That happened about 60 times. All right. Remember that thing about standing. All right. That's when these cases failed. Not about the merits, but on standing. You don't have any basis to be suing. You can't do that. Somebody else should be doing it. And remember, they chased all the lawyers away. They chased the establishment is afraid. All right. They keep them in line. We're just a bunch of deplorables, right? We're just MAGA, right? And we're on our own. All we've got are each other. I'll be right back.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So, I saw this ad for fertility treatments over the weekend. Very nice ad, right? I mean, fertility, we all love fertility, right? Beautifully produced, all that stuff. And then I'm looking at the ad and I noticed that, it's all about making babies and that's beautiful, right? And then they have the parents in this commercial and, I noticed something about the parents, okay? The parents were all, unique in some way, shape or form. I kind of think a commercial about making babies where they, show you that the parents are, two black lesbians, right? I think there's a real point of view there, right? There's another message in addition to making the babies. Or two gay guys, one black, one white. Or, it was on and on and on like this, right? It was same-sex couples. But this is a very, mainstream procedure open to everybody. Lots of people. I would hazard to guess that straight women are the prime customers for this, what does IVF stand for? In vitro fertilization, right? It's a great thing. It's a miracle. But it is every kind of arrangement that you can think of. And it's in your face. And then I realized this. Who saw the marathon this weekend? Anybody remember Matt James from The Bachelor? Totally great guy. Happens to be black. Did you realize that Disney did not have a black bachelor for 22 years? Why is that? Stay with me.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Election fraud is real and it happens, and it's okay to talk about it. They literally have made it so you must have faith in our elections, as if like elections is somehow a religion, and the voting booth is a saint or a god. It's not. It's just a municipal system, and it's as susceptible to corruption as any municipal system, which is to say it's extremely susceptible to corruption. I mean, every other aspect of government, state, local, federal, we've seen corruption. Why wouldn't we see it with our elections? Of course we see. You see the stuff in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Even the New York Times acknowledging ballot stuffers caught on camera have upended a race for mayor. Let's see here. A judge this week tossed out the results of the Democratic mayoral primary, citing surveillance video that appears to show significant voting irregularities. He ordered election officials to hold a new primary, but had no authority to postpone the general election in the meantime. And so on Tuesday, the general election will go on as planned. That's tomorrow. The city of Bridgeport finds itself in this mess after videos surfaced that showed suspicious activity at absentee ballot drop boxes. Gee, just like in that movie, 2,000 Mules by Dinesh D'Souza. Shut up. Don't talk about that. Someone's going to call the FBI. They can stay the hell out of it. I'm allowed to talk about that. So are you. You're allowed to watch Dinesh D'Souza's 2,000 Mules. It's a great movie. Raises a lot of important questions. In clip after clip, 2 women are seen stuffing wads of paper into the boxes. This is from the judge, William Clark of Superior Court in Bridgeport. The videos are shocking to the court and should be shocking to all parties. They're actually not that shocking to me because I've seen it before. In 2020, everybody. Yeah, I did. And so did you. Imagine if the mainstream media told you didn't have to go out of your way to find this stuff and feel like a subversive somehow. The volume of ballots so mishandled is such that it calls the result of the primary election into serious doubt and leaves the court unable to determine the legitimate result. This is what we call a judge talking about the merits of a case. What we had with the federal election, with the presidential election, Rudy would go into court and they'd say, "Oh, you have no business being here. You're representing not the campaign. You're representing the president." They'd always give him the runaround. This is dynamite stuff. These videos look very, very much like some of the videos I saw in January of 2020. How about that? Now, what else is going on? You notice that certain mass shooters they love talking about, and certain mass shooters they love ignoring. They just ignore, right? We get mass shootings all the time. All the time. It's horrible. I wish we didn't. But we have a lot of people out there who are crazy. And a lot of trans people are crazy. In fact, I'm sorry, if you're transgender, that is almost by definition a mental disorder. There's a problem there. There is a problem there. Gender dysphoria is a very, very rare thing, and when it is diagnosed, it is a disorder, but it can be treated. And a number of adults, that's fine when you're an adult. But for kids, obviously, that's crazy. So you'll notice that every time there's anybody they can, it's a white man. Let's say that he's a Trump supporter and he's a white supremacist. What shooting comes to mind? Oh yeah, the Atlanta spa shootings. Some crazy guy had a hang up with Asian massage parlor workers, and he went around shooting them. All right, it was very much of some weirdo sexual hang up this guy had. All right. It wasn't white supremacy. It wasn't KKK. And the FBI and the local sheriff said that right away. Didn't stop Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, president and vice president, getting on a plane and showing up there in Atlanta. It happened in Atlanta, and claiming white supremacy, white supremacy, white supremacy, white supremacy. Why do I bring this up? Oh yeah, because we're seeing reports that the manifesto from the Nashville Covenant School. Remember that beautiful school where the children and a teacher and a janitor were shot by that crazed gun woman, the transgender person? And we heard right away from the cops that this transgender woman, I can't remember the name, by the way, I'm going to look it up, left behind a major manifesto. The cops actually said that right away, and it looked like the manifesto was an indication of, the motivation and why she did this. Some people get bent out of shape when I call the transgender shooter a she. Well, she was born a she. I think she wanted to be a he, so therefore I go with the she, okay? Let's see here. Transgender shooter Nashville. I know you know. Audrey Hale. Opened fire, killed all those beautiful children. Now we are seeing her, what we believe to be her manifesto. Her statement as to why, now it has not been 1,000% confirmed, but I'm looking at the sources. I trust these guys, and they're putting screenshots of the manifesto on social media. And I think this is the real deal. Now, with all that said, what does it say? Hey, James Flippin just walked in.
Hey, what's up, Greg? Yeah, Aubrey Hale, I think I saw online. line. Audrey, Aubrey, something like that.
She, apparently this was not about transgender. This was about her hatred of white children. This was racially motivated. Now, even though she's a white woman, was a white woman because the cops shot her. Have you ever seen that body cam footage?
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
It's intense.
I watched it like 55 times. I watched it a lot. I kind of wanted to be that cop, to be honest. It was pretty cool. Let's face it, it was cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was literally like something out of a movie or something, in terms of them gearing up, getting ready to run in there.
Let's go, let's go, let's go. In fact, I'm going to play that for everybody. So what are you hearing about this manifesto? Is it the real deal?
Well, so from what I saw, Steven Crowder is the person who shared it on social media. Now, he's a comedian. He's also a political commentator, somebody who's got a well-known podcast. He does YouTube stuff.
But he actually, I think he's more than a comedian. He's a thinker. He's a conservative thinker. And there's some other people who are also posting this, crediting him, like DC Drano, all these guys with crazy nicknames. But I think I trust these guys. I actually do. I trust them more than the New York Times.
Well, yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of the citizen journalism that you see on social media these days is a lot of the time what uncovers things like this. And, there are some notes on the documents that say redacted and stuff like that, suggesting maybe it is of official nature. You pointed out, Greg, that one of the screenshots in the background, you can actually see a police vehicle. And you're saying that, generally speaking, you look at it, it probably is sometime around early spring when that is being taken, that picture.
I think they got these notebooks right out of the backpack and they started to, share them with people. And I think that's fine. I don't know though. We don't know 100%, but I do know this body cam stuff. Look, I hate school shootings. I hate that it happened. I hate this person got so twisted and so far from God and so messed up. The shooter, my God, it's all awful. And it's all encouraged by this left-wing lunatic society we live in, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you read some of what's, being purported as the manifesto here, you can see where this comes out of some of the leading progressive thought speak. I mean, first she says she's a little nervous, been excited for the past 2 weeks. There were several times I could have been caught, she writes, in the summer of 2021. None of that matters now. I'm an hour and 7 minutes away. I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm ready. I hope my victims aren't. This is where it gets into the juicy stuff.
Wait, whoa. This is all right. I'm looking at it. It's all handwritten on what looks like a marble notebook.
Right. Yeah, one of those composites you can't easily rip the pages out. But then,
my only fear is if anything goes wrong, I'll do my best to prevent any of the sort.
Now, I will say, Greg, you tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I'm looking at these 3 screenshots. One of them looks like it's a book that does not have a spiral bound in the middle. The ability to rip the pages out, like you said, a composition book.
Well, she had, so?
Then there's 2 that are from a book that's got a spiral binding on it. I'm just saying, I'm just pointing out, I'm looking at this just for the first time like you are. We're trying to authenticate what is and what isn't going on here.
Now, she called herself Aiden. My only fear is if anything goes wrong, I'll do my best to prevent of the sort. God, let my wrath take over my anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
It might be 10 minutes tops. It might be 3 to 7. It's going to go quick. I hope I have a high death count. Ready to die. Ha ha. Aiden.
And that would have been, I guess, the name that Aubrey, had decided to take for herself.
And listen to this. This is the evil that we're dealing with and that is openly encouraged. Okay. This is what it says. Kill those kids, those crackers, going to private fancy schools with those fancy khakis and sports backpacks with their daddy's Mustangs and convertibles. F you, little SH. I wish to shoot you, white ass, DICKS. With your mop yellow hair, want to kill all you little crackers, bunch of little F-word rhymes with maggots, with your white privileges, F you, maggots. Now, all right, we're putting this out there. Now, should we be? I have noticed that there is a tendency to flood the zone with the delusional maniac writings of anybody who happens to be stupid enough and insane enough to be a white supremacist. And they're out there sometimes, right?
Yeah. I mean, I could think of that guy who was like a crazy guy living down in a van somewhere in Florida who was supposedly some big Trump supporter that, made all these threats against Democratic lawmakers. And we certainly heard about his writings and rantings and ravings. That was some years ago. I can't even remember the guy's name. But, this is obviously, if it's true, then yeah, it certainly would speak to the motivation surrounding that deadly mass shooting there in Nashville.
Yeah, it's all weird, obviously, and sad and pathetic, and just like our society is so sad and strange and pathetic and backwards, and that, somehow we're not supposed to confront this. The trans ideology is being forced down children's throats. It's being forced down my throat. I passed 2 churches today with that stupid, I'm gonna throw up if I see it again, gay pride flag with the trans thing on the side. All right. I used to, in 2003, I'd wave the stupid thing at a parade. What the hell? Everything. But on a church? Are you insane? Are you insane? There are a lot of things we can't do that we want to do. Right? Right? You can't do it in church. I like threesomes. Okay. I can't do those anymore. I could never do those. I'm not going to go in with the threesome flag. I've definitely said too much that time.
Well, I mean, I think that you're right in the sense that there are aspects of all this stuff, LGBTQ, whatever, where there are some people who say it's about inclusivity and being accepting of people and just letting them let live, all that stuff.
There are all kinds of things in the Bible that you're really not supposed to do, right? It's not just, and I will say, I mean, I was jokingly referring to people have impulses. They do. Mm-hmm. Because we're human beings, we try to control those impulses. That's what separates us from, right? And I think to be our true and best selves, to the extent we can, and to see it embraced and encouraged in church.
Yeah.
Now, I've had gay friends, disagree with me on this because they're like, well, the way you act, you're equating gay behavior, say, with adultery.
Right.
And, you're saying gay is something illicit. I mean, perhaps I am, but not really. I don't think so. I do say this, though. I don't think it should be promoted and encouraged in church.
Well, I mean,
just like the things that, some of us like to do who are not gay, right? There's a whole panoply of things that can be done. You just use your imagination.
I understand what you're saying, and I think that there are, a certain number of conservative Christians, maybe they're not conservative, whatever, who say that almost any sex that's not aimed at procreation, right, is somehow outside the model of what God wants and in some way sinful or, looking at sex as something other than what it's really intended for or all this kind of thing. And, you could get into that debate if you want to, but.
You can get into that debate. You can have that discussion. But in the meantime, there's no debate. In the meantime, you can't have a debate because it's totally embraced.
Right.
And you are only, I talked about this last week. You are defined by, you want to have sex. All right. Now sex, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the stud of the century, right? Valentino, the American gigolo. Sex only takes up so much time, right? There's a lot of other things to do other than that. And to just make it all about this one thing, which our society is doing. And now I see this. This is actually not even about sex. This is all about race and the toxic, horrible, phony discussion we've had about race in this country to avoid having a serious one. If you are damaged mentally and you just walk around picking up the signals of society, what do they tell you? Yeah, white people are bad. Yeah, white privilege is a real thing and it's bad. And, everyone's privileged except for you. Just look at Instagram. Give me a break. Let's see. This person hates people because they wear khaki pants.
Yeah, but I mean, look, even though I don't disagree with you at all surrounding what you're saying about the racialization of things and making everything about that, I think something else you said was very interesting in the sense that you talked about, holding back or limiting yourself somehow and not giving into your indulgences. It seems like society doesn't celebrate that anymore. In many ways, they don't celebrate what? holding yourself back or limiting your intake, right? Like, we're told that you have to celebrate women and men if they're obese. You have to have injection sites for people who do opiates. You can't just say, oh, you shouldn't be doing that many drugs. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, We've gotten away from this level of excess is okay, I guess.
Well, let me tell you this. As a formerly chubby person, nobody was celebrating that.
It's different with guys. Like, I'm thinking of the women on social media and they say, yes, girl. You should celebrate the fact that they're heavy, that type of thing.
Well, that may work for the Dove soap campaign, online, but, it's not good for the health. All right. Everything's all messed up. We're going to fix it though. I'll be right back.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We haven't taken any calls. Chris, you're in Warwick. Where is that exactly?
In Orange County. We're about, you've been to Legoland. I heard you've been to Legoland.
That's true. Is that, okay. I know where you are roughly. So what's up?
You mentioned earlier, about 10 minutes ago, about in vitro fertilization. And I think you said what a great thing it is. And it is a great thing, obviously. But the drawback, there's a dark side to that. What happens is, and I know this because my daughter went through it, they have to harvest X amount of eggs from a woman or get donor eggs from a woman. They fertilize them, then they implant them in the woman, and then they watch to see how many take. And if multiple eggs take, i.e. Octomom, they give the woman a choice now. Do you want to keep all those fertilized eggs, say 4 or 5 of them, and have 4 or 5 kids?
Well, hey, hold on a second. Hold on. I don't think they just jam a bunch of fertilized eggs into the woman. I don't think they do it that way. It's one at a time.
No, they actually do.
No. I have some experience. Well, I mean, maybe doctors do it differently, but I know that in some cases it's one at a time.
My daughter went through it 3 times, and
all right, Chris. I know, but it's
all
not.
Right.
There are other ways to do it, and you don't. And I understand it presents some real ethical issues about fertilized eggs, because fertilized eggs are, what's another word for that? A person, right, Chris?
Person, right. Yep.
Tell us more about your daughter's experience.
She had 3 attempts. The first 2 failed, and then the last one, she wound up having a boy and a girl. They're 14 years old right now. It's an amazing thing. But in the meantime, she had all these eggs, fertilized eggs, that she didn't know what to do with them. So, anyway.
Well, wait a second. Wait. But you can fertilize an egg through straight, old-fashioned intercourse, right? That happens.
Exactly, right.
And then, but the egg, it's not a baby unless it, it is a baby, but it's got to implant itself on the uterine wall, right? Right? It's got to, right. I don't think it gets fertilized on the uterine wall. It actually gets fertilized and then lodges on the uterine wall. And then, what's that thing called again? Mastocytosis. What's it called again? That word, it's a very interesting word about how it just splits and grows. Right? I mean, am I wrong about the biology of all this stuff?
No, I think they fertilize the egg and then they implant it. So you're right.
Wait. I'm talking about old-fashioned sexual intercourse, right? If you're lucky and you want to have a child, that egg is fertilized before it gets to the uterine wall. Now, let's say it doesn't get to the uterine wall. It just goes away, right? It just kind of, it just goes away, right?
Self-aborted, yeah, I guess, yeah.
Well, I don't want to call it self-aborted. That sounds kind of, that sounds a little, wait a second. What is this word when a cell, embryo grows like crazy? What is that called?
That's Jim.
What's it called again?
I don't know.
It's a crazy word. Come on, somebody help me. Does anybody know? It's like man. All right, never mind. I'm not going to figure it out now. Do you know, Diego? You guys? Anybody? No, we don't have any girls around here.
Mitosis?
No, that's not it. All right, thank you. I'll be right back. Thanks, buddy.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I'm really hung up on this word. What the hell it is about the human embryo. It undergoes multiple cell divisions in a process called mitosis, like you said, but it's not that word. It's something else. At the end of this transition period, the embryo becomes a mass of very organized cells called a blastocyst. It's more like that, blastocyst, something along those lines. It's now believed that as women get older, this process of early embryo development is increasingly, okay, that's another discussion there. Wow, that's something. It's called something, but I can't recall exactly what it is. All right, hey man, whoa, what the hell happened to America? I thought that you know what we haven't had? Maybe there hasn't been much Holocaust awareness. When I was growing up in the 1970s, there were these amazing television movies about the horrors of the Holocaust. There was also this great documentary series. It was usually on Channel 9 in the afternoons on weekends called The World at War. And they talked a lot about all this, this crazy anti-Semitism that is all over the place. And it kind of helped. It worked. I mean, we know that anti-Semitism is horrible, and Israel was created as a haven against genocide in a way, and now it's happening all over again. You know, I hear about something called hipster racism. You know, we kind of grew up knowing what's what, knowing people should be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And you know where we learned this? Where I learned this, actually? I learned it in a couple of places. I learned it at home. I learned it in Schubert's school, which was a very diverse school in Baldwin. I guess I learned it a little bit on Sesame Street. You know, Bob and Gordon, they were great friends. Bob died, by the way. The late Bob. Gordon is still around. I thought Gordon was the coolest guy in the world. He wore shirts like I used to wear, turtlenecks. And he sang that song, I Want a Kid Like You. If I had a kid, I'd want him to be like you. I just thought it was great. Anyway, but the hipster generation, the Generation Y, X, whatever the hell you want to call them, the 20 to 35-year-olds right now, I think they missed a lot of that. And you'd be surprised how crazy, racist, and weird they are about a lot of things. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Because they missed it. And I guess they missed the memo on anti-Semitism and the Holocaust. It's incredible. And they're out there yelling and screaming these horrible anti-Semitic tropes. And they're parading in front of the White House. I noticed that no one's calling that an insurrection. It looked pretty intense to me. I saw throngs of people taking over streets, shutting down bridges. But it's not really, it's not making the news in any way that seems significant. Why is that? Because they agree with the protesters. They like it. They're on their side. The powers that be. Yeah, I think that's a big chunk of it. And, what a shame and a disgrace, isn't it? I heard Zelensky on Meet the Press yesterday. I think he needs to do less television. After listening to that guy, I was kind of sick of him and annoyed with him. And I keep seeing these videos of how great things are in Kyiv. I also see these videos of how rich some of these guys are, like the defense minister and others in Kyiv, and all this money we've thrown their way. Joe Biden tells me, oh, don't worry about it. You're throwing it not away, not to Ukraine, but to arms manufacturers in places like Arizona and Massachusetts. And yeah, talk about the industrial, what do they call it? The military industrial complex. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. Oh, yeah, here's Zelensky yesterday. Cut 6, please.
Former President Trump said that about 24 hours that he can manage it and finish the war. For me, what can I say? If you're not ready...
Stop! That guy has the most unpleasant voice in the world. Doesn't he sound a little... I mean, I don't know anything about him. I know that everybody says you're supposed to like this guy. I have my doubts. I know this. I keep hearing about democracy. We're going to defend democracy, defend democracy, defend democracy. You know what this guy did? He suspended elections. No elections in the democracy until the war is over. You can have an election during a war. We've done it in our country. We do it in our country. We have elections during wars. You don't suspend the democracy. You don't suspend the election because the country's at war. We had one in 1944. We had an election during a war, smack dab in the middle of it. 1952, smack dab in the middle of the Korean War. That was still going on. What else? 68, another war going on. 2004, another. You see? I don't know. This guy's giving me the creeps lately. He's giving me the creeps. The other thing that we needed to do. Oh, wait. What's his name? Obama is out there quite a bit lately. Quite a bit. Why am I seeing him all of a sudden? Everywhere. He's everywhere. Before he was quietly making his billions of dollars, and who knows what else he was up to. But now he's got all of his money. You know, I saw him at this podcast convention, this silly podcast thing. And the guy, I will tell you this, he looks amazing. He is the most like perfectly groomed man in the world. Just looks, you know, not an ounce of fat on him, but, you know, just he's working out twice a day. And listen to these, remember how pompous this guy was? Cut 24, please. Cut 24.
If there's any chance of us being able to act constructively to do something, it will require an admission of complexity and maintaining what on the surface may seem contradictory ideas. That what Hamas did was horrific and there's no justification for it. And what is also true is that the occupation and what's happening to Palestinians is unbearable.
Stop! Get your facts straight, Obama. Get your facts straight. There ain't no occupation of Gaza. There hasn't been since like 2006. All right? Man, this guy used to run the world. He's clueless. He's clueless and pompous. That's a terrible, terrible, terrible combination. And oh, by the way, he's really trying to stick it to the Jews. Just like when he was president. That's where he's coming from. Barack Hussein Obama, sorry, but I think he has, look, everybody has sympathies. His clearly are on the side of the people who committed these atrocities. I really think so. I think he thinks they have a point and they have a genuine grudge. Keep going.
And what is also true is that there is a history of the Jewish people that may be dismissed unless your grandparents or your great-grandparents or your uncle or your aunt
Stop for a second. Don't be fooled. This is going to be like, oh, well, he does get it. No, he doesn't, actually. On the one hand and on the other hand. That's what he's doing. Keep going.
About the madness of anti-Semitism. And what is true is that there are people right now who are dying who have nothing to do with what Hamas did. And what is true, right? I mean, we can go on for a while. And the problem with the social media and trying to TikTok activism and trying to debate this on that is you can't speak the truth. You can pretend to speak the truth. You can speak one side of the truth. And in some cases, you can try to maintain your moral innocence, but that won't solve the problem. And so if you want to solve the problem, then you have to take in the whole truth. And you then have to admit nobody's hands are clean. That
what?
What?
All right. He's ignorant and he's wrong. Nobody's hands are clean. You know whose hands are clean? The 20-year-old girls who went to that concert. The 82-year-old lady who was held in the tunnels. I think their hands are clean. The babies who have been slaughtered. I think they're clean too. And he did something similar to this pompous lecture that he gave over the weekend. In 2016, I think it was, 5 Dallas, Texas cops were slaughtered by some racist maniac who happened to be black, and he opened fire, right? And he goes to the memorial service and he honors those who were killed, the police officers, but then he goes on to honor the lives of the criminals who lost their lives to police, yes. And that's what motivated the deranged killer. And he talked about this one guy who was selling CDs. He was just selling CDs, and his name was Todd, I think, and he was just selling CDs, but every time he cooked, he made sure he cooked for everybody else. He made sure everybody else had enough food. Isn't that a great guy, Todd? Wow, this is really good. Every time he cooked, he made sure everybody else. This is the guy who's selling the CDs. What a great guy. Obama left out the fact that he was menacing people with a knife, and if you don't buy my CD, I'm going to stab you in the heart. At that point, I really don't care about what a good old boy he was at the backyard picnic. You know what I mean? And the last thing you do is start talking about this maniac in glowing terms. Oh, wow, he made enough for everybody. Wow, isn't that at the police memorial? That's who he is, and that's what he's doing right here. And he's showing up a lot lately. The other thing, and I think Biden is on thin ice here, but you never know. David Axelrod, Obama's political guru, over the weekend came out and said it's time for Joe to go. You add that to David Ignatius, the left's favorite political commentator for the Washington Post. He said it's time for Joe to go a couple of months ago. Very important people are stepping forward and saying it's time for Joe to go. And then we have this poll I just went through where Biden is trailing in 5 states after everything Trump has been through. So they're panicking. Now, who's they? That's a good question. The donors, the Democrat donors, and they basically run the Democrat Party, people around Joe Biden. But Joe is so nasty and mean and just won't talk to anybody. You can't approach him. You ever notice the type? You know, the boss who's like, throws a temper tantrum. So there's no talking to Joe, and Joe is convinced that he's the only one who can beat Trump. And this is where I get worried, because these polls are like, we've never seen anything like this. A guy doing this well, this early after what he's been through and all the unfair coverage, that they just might try to rig it. They just might try to steal it. That they just might try to steal it. Should I say again? Steal it again? Okay. Anyway, I have grave concerns about the fairness of the last election. Don't you? I don't say stolen because I technically can't prove that, but I have my doubts about the validity of certain states and how I know it. I know they broke the rules. I know they broke the law. I'll be right back.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Pretty much wall-to-wall coverage of President Trump in that courtroom downtown. Isn't that amazing? He's been indicted, 4 times, arrested twice, and he's still crushing Joe Biden in the polls. He's going to war with this judge. The judge is totally biased, totally flawed. It must drive them crazy. Must drive him totally crazy. This judge who ostensibly dedicated his life to, upholding the law and being fair, and we can all see it. We can all see what a fraud he is, the judge. Holding up Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million, and now he's spending all of his time defending his clerk. I would tell the clerk to get lost, get another job. Wait a second. I'm supposed to be impartial and fair here. Are you telling me you used to work for Chuck Schumer? Yeah. All right, get lost. You can't do that. Justice is blind, all that stuff. You're putting me in a bad spot here. But no, it's all about how dare Donald Trump talk about this. Hey, is Chris Christie, give it up already. Man, he's still running. He's still being propped up by the fake news. Now, the fake news did not show this, I noticed, when he gets booed to his face. And Chris Christie, who has no talent whatsoever, none, zero. What does he do? What does he bring to the table? He doesn't even have basic political skills. They boo him. He can't figure out a way out of this one instead of just chastising the crowd and belittling us as if we, where is this? This is in Florida over the weekend. Cut 5.
Your anger against the truth is reprehensible.
Boo.
When you think about the problems that our country and this world is facing, when you think about that,
yeah,
this type of pettiness is beneath.
You mean like setting up those cones at the Washington Bridge, GW? I think that's beneath the president. How about going to the beach when everybody can't?
And as people watch today, as people watch today, if your arguments are so strong, if your arguments are so great, and mine are so bad, then just keep quiet.
Why?
Let me make my awful arguments, and then you can just reject them out of hand. But the problem
it's more fun to boo you, especially when you're demeaning everybody.
The problem is you fear the truth. The problem is you want to shout down any voice that says anything different.
Seems like he's the one doing the shouting down.
And you can continue to do it, and believe me, it doesn't bother me one bit.
I'm sure, because it, I don't know. I think 0% in the polls is probably bothering him a little bit. I think, I could have run for president in 2012. I actually had a shot. Now I don't. That's probably bothering him a little bit. How about the fact that he can't articulate, how is it that the guy who was one of the first people to endorse President Trump in 2016, right after he got his ass beat by Trump, and even helped him get ready for debates against Joe Biden in 2019 and 2020, flipped and now is the ultimate Trump opponent. Oh, he's such a threat. He's this, that, and the other thing. Is it all because of January 6th? Because if he does, and I think it is in part because of January 6th, but that shows you what a fraud he is, that he won't tell the truth about January 6th, that he won't tell the truth about the election. It's a bad guy, especially when he talks about all of his experience as a prosecutor. That's when you know, all right, that Chris Christie is a fake and a liar. All right, I'm telling you, when he starts to talk about his U.S. attorney experience, because he was never a prosecutor, he got appointed by George W. Bush because he raised money. And that's one of the big problems with politics. You got to give jobs to people who raise money for you. Just a terrible, terrible, terrible thing. Nothing about experience, nothing about ability. And he walks around like he's Elliot Ness or Frank Hogan. Who knows who Frank Hogan is? The great late DA from this county, New York County, also known as Manhattan.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I got to play you guys this. It's what date is today? It's my daughter speaking Spanish. Now, I can't get her to say much to me, but she will say things in Spanish, because I don't know Spanish, but she will say things to the babysitter, which is pretty cool. She speaks Spanish, and sometimes she only speaks to her in Spanish, and my daughter knows Spanish. And you know what I know? I know the vicarious thrill of your son or daughter doing something that you can't do. You know what I mean? It's like, somehow I feel like this benefits me that she can speak Spanish. I know it's no big deal. Diego, you've been speaking Spanish longer than you've been speaking English. But to me, who is a, unilingual kind of guy, unilingual, one language, although I can get by in French much more than I realized I could. I was over in Paris and I was talking to the French. I was pretty amazed. I was amazed with myself. But day in and day out, you don't get to do that. And anyway, I'm very, very pleased. I just sent you the clip, okay, the Spanish clip. And she's saying stuff in Spanish, and it's a wonderful thing to hear. But as we get ready for that, we are waiting for the official certification of this trans shooter, if this is or not a manifesto from that Aubrey Hale, the nutjob shooter who killed all those kids at that Nashville Catholic school several months ago. As we wait for that, here's something bizarre in a different way. I'm reminded of Joe Biden's corn pop story. Now, why does that come up? I was reading a book over the weekend. It's called Breaking Biden, and it's by Alex Marlowe of Breitbart News. It's a very good book, and there's stuff in there that I didn't even realize about Joe, and I thought I had all of his gaffes. Here's the one where he goes on about his sister. Do you have that one? That's from the Wired clip, all right? Let's listen to this. This is Joe Biden. It's going to take a few moments, but says something very inappropriate and weird, as usual, for Joe, but I've never heard him talk about this topic like this. Go ahead.
Is Joe Biden a vegan? No, Joe Biden's not a vegan, although my wife is pushing me. Most of the meals I eat, quite frankly, don't have meat. A lot of chicken, a fair amount of fish. I'm big on ice cream. And that puts me in real trouble. You know what I mean? And so after all these years, it's very disappointing to be known for two things. My Ray-Bans and ice cream. It's pretty dull. Okay, does Joe Biden have a brother? I'm lucky I have two younger brothers. I'm the oldest of three, and I've got a sister who's the love of my life. Does
Stop!
Joe Biden have
He has a sister who's the love of his life. Gross? Inappropriate? Weird? That's Joe. This is a couple. Keep going with this, please.
First one I got when I got named Vice President of the United States by Barack, it was bribery on the part of my family. They said, if you agree, we'll get you a dog again. So I have a dog named Champ. He's getting to be an old guy. And to keep him young, we went out and got another dog from the rescue center. And his name is Major. Does Joe Biden have a law degree? Yes, I do. I have a law degree from Syracuse University, and I practiced law for a while here in Delaware. Did Joe Biden ever serve in the military? No, I haven't, but we're a military family. My son Bo served in the military, passed away, spent a year in Iraq, won the Bronze Star, Conspicuous Service Medal, and a number of other commendations. Did Joe Biden ever have a job? Yeah, I've had a job. I used to be a lifeguard for years. And when I ran for the United States Senate, they said, well, why do you want a 29-year-old guy who's only been a lifeguard? Well, the truth was I was a practicing lawyer. I've been a public defender, and I had my own small law firm. But I got elected when I was 29, and then I had another job, although I guess people don't consider being a senator a job.
That's right. We don't actually. We don't. It's public dole. All right. It's amazing. It's a shame you guys even cash a paycheck, get a paycheck. It's incredible. All that stuff that accrued to his benefit, his family's benefit, financial benefit, a handshake and a dopey smile and hustling for himself and his own reputation. And you know what? When you're a senator, you're your own boss. 29. He made it sound like he had some sort of substantial resume before he became a senator. He didn't. You know, he's 29. You get out of law school when you're 25. He became a councilman, a city councilman, when he was 27. So this guy had 2 years in the rough and tumble of life. That's it. And he's rearranging society, isn't that? I mean, he mentioned the lifeguard job. And don't forget, that's where he encountered Corn Pop. Remember Corn Pop? Listen to this. This is one of the most horrifically odd things ever uttered by an American. Forget American president, forget a senator, forget just an American person. His gibberish about Corn Pop. Now, mind you, when he says all this stuff, he's outside a public pool, and he's surrounded by about 15 children, all of whom happen to be black girls for the most part. And this is how Joe talks. Go ahead with cut 23.
I learned a lot. And I learned that it makes a difference. This was the diving board area, and I was one of the guards, and they weren't allowed to. There was a 3-meter board. If you fell off sideways, you landed on the darn cement over there. And Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys. And I did. And back in those days, you see how things have changed. One of the things you had to use, if you used pomade in your hair, you had to wear a bathing cap.
Children he's talking
to.
So
he was up on the board, wouldn't listen to me. I said, hey, Esther, you, off the board, or I'll come up and drag you off. Well, he came off, and he said, I'll meet you outside. My car, these were all public housing behind it. My car, there was a gate out here. I parked my car outside the gate. And he said, I'll be waiting for you. He was waiting for 3 guys in straight razors. Not a joke. There was a guy named Bill Wright, Mouse, the only white guy, and he did all the pools. He was the mechanic. And I said, what am I going to do? He said, come down here in the basement where all the pool filter is. You know the chain, there used to be a chain that went across the deep end. And he cut off a 6-foot length of chain. He folded up, he said, you walk out for that chain.
There are kids. It's a all children audience. It's fascinating. Keep going a little bit more.
And you walk to the car and say, you may cut me, man, but I'm going to wrap this chain around your head. I said, you kidding me? He said, no, if you don't come back. And he was right. So I walked out with the chain. And I walked up to my car, and they had, those days, you used to remember the straight razor, you'd bang them on the curb, get them rusty, put them in the rain barrel, get them rusty. And I looked at them, but I was smart then. I said, first of all, I said, when I tell you get off the board, you get off the board, and I'll kick you out again, but I shouldn't have called you Esther Williams. I apologize for that. I apologize, but I didn't know that apology was going to work. He said, you apologize to me? I said, I apologize for that, not for throwing you out, but I apologize for what I said. He said, okay, close the straight razor, and my heart began to beat again.
And then he goes on about the blonde hair on his leg. We got out before the blonde hair. He's got blonde hair and roaches and that would stand up. And the man is devoid of ability. However, in this Alex Marlowe book, he says, it's interesting, Joe actually is very good at some things and working the system with zero to no ability. He works the system masterfully, and he's an egoist. And it's a weird thing he also has going. It doesn't matter what you say about him. The humiliation that he's had to endure would take out other people. Now you could say, well, what about Trump? Well, what about Trump? Trump has never self-immolated. This guy has the mistakes that he has made, the lies, the plagiarism, all that. You can never catch Trump in any of that stuff. What about the 10,052 lies? No, they're not actually. I've proven that many, many times. We'll do it again. Hello, Adam. Welcome back. Our friend, not from Mineola, but he's still saying he's from Mineola. I don't understand why you do that, Adam. It's okay to say you're from Hempstead, 2 towns over. Hello.
You there? All right. Well, you was in Baldwin. I mean, all that's in the same area. Baldwin, Hempstead, Bridgeport.
Yeah. Well, I say I grew up in Baldwin, and then I moved in 2nd grade to Garden City. I moved from Baldwin. We went through Hempstead right to Garden City. You are 1 town over from Mineola.
Okay.
And let's face it, not too many black people live in Mineola.
Oh, they do now, though. They got a lot of apartment buildings over there.
Not as much as in Hempstead. Not that it makes any difference, but I'm just, Adam, I love it that you call. But every day you tell us you're from Mineola when you're not. I mean, I've never heard anybody lying about being from Mineola. It's not like, I don't know. I just don't I don't get it.
Okay, sir.
Maybe lie is too strong a word. I don't want to make you feel bad here or anything, but you know what? You might as well just say you're from Hempstead. You ever go to the White Castle in Hempstead?
Yeah.
Actually, it's in West Hempstead. I love that.
Right, West Hempstead.
Do you remember Times Square stores? Have you been there that long?
TSS. Yes. I'll be 62 years old this month.
I miss that Times Square store. What else? They used to have they had Abraham and Strauss, A&S in Hempstead. They got rid of that. They got rid of a lot of things. They had a beautiful hobby store on Fulton Street that they got rid of. Anyway, I'm fond of Hempstead, and I know it well. Adam, how can I help? What's up?
Your boy Trump is over there, testifying prosecution, some type of political prosecution is happening to him. But we need him to talk about the money and the facts of the case that he's being sued for, sir. Can he defend that without talking about political prosecution?
What do you want him to say that he's not saying? He's fighting for his life, man. He's allowed to. What do you want him to say that he's not saying?
Tell him he's sorry, man. Maybe he can keep some of the millions, baby.
Sorry. So you believe all this stuff? You think these are righteous prosecutions? You think that just regular law enforcement types and regular people just doing their jobs and this seems out of line. Oh wow, we have that. This sounds very. You think it just happened that way? Yeah. You notice that they discover that some of this stuff is going on in 2011, and in 2023, the year before the election, this is when they decide to file the lawsuit. You don't find that suspicious at all,
sir? So many people have been prosecuted years later. It's a shame.
Oh, years later. Well, actually, no. They have a thing called the statute of limitations, which they got rid of. They passed a law so they could go after Trump. They passed a law. Governor Hochul signed it. That you can be some whack job with a story from 25 years ago and come forward. Look, Adam, I'm sorry we don't see things eye to eye on this at all, but, at least we got Hempstead in common, right? We love that Times Square store and A&S and, what else was there? Yeah, you know Karine Jean-Pierre is from Hempstead?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she is. Hey, you know that David Patterson, the governor, is from Hempstead?
He flipped to Republican now, seemed like.
Nah, he's still a Democrat. He's like
a yes man for John Catsimatidis now, like a yes man.
Hey, let me ask you something, Adam. Do you have a boss at the airport? Let me guess.
Yeah,
I have a feeling you agree with your boss about everything, right? And oh, by the way, Governor Patterson has plenty of leeway when it comes to the editorial. Okay, it's all that doesn't work that way in talk radio. Okay, we love our boss just like you love your boss, Adam. Thank you for the call, and stop trying to make people uncomfortable around here. Yeah, I agree with the boss. But it happens to be more than the perfunctory, you know what I mean? Everybody has to agree with the ball. I love the ball. We have a legend here, John Catsimatidis, a total legend. And you should read his book too. A lot of self-help stuff in there. And, if you read it, maybe, I don't know, maybe you'd be in charge of that bus company. Maybe you'd be running the show. I'm serious, Adam. There's still time. Let me do one more. The amazing Barbara from Huntington. Hello, Barbara.
Hi, Greg. Your show on Friday night was fabulous. It was so tight and fact-filled and powerful. It was amazing. You mentioned on the show, though, the media saying that Israel is losing the PR war. And I know you commented about that. Well, Golda Meir had something to say about that. She said, the world hates a Jew who hits back. The world loves us only when we are to be pitied.
Wow, that's powerful too. I quoted Golda Meir about that other thing about the children. That was very powerful. Would you mind sending that along to me? That Golda Meir, what a powerful, strong woman. There's a movie out about her right now named Golda. I got to go see it. I also got to see the new Scorsese one. What else?
Would you like to hear another quote by her that I think is very powerful? She said, if we have to choose between being dead and pitied and being alive with a bad image, we'd rather be alive and have the bad image.
Wow. Yeah. These people, they're so wise. They get it. They're savvy, and nobody tougher than that Golda Meir. Wow. That's amazing stuff. Yeah, the PR war, all this stuff that they have, now they've got bigger fish to fry, and they're in trouble right now. They need our support. Barbara, all else is good? The funeral and everything, is that over?
Yes, that's over, and we're just trying to deal with our grief and remember our brother.
Yeah, Barbara, your younger brother, we're so sorry. A great guy. The principal, right? Middle school principal. And why is it tough to be a middle school principal?
He was an educator. He started out as a shop teacher, and he worked his way up in administration to be an administrator and the principal of this big consolidated high school that sat out in the midst of cornfields outside of Fort Wayne, Indiana. And the school loved him. Everyone loved him. He had such a good sense of humor, and he was such a fair and smart man. And he had a wonderful career there. And those 11 years there were the last of his career. Then he retired and was helping to take care of his 2 young grandchildren.
Amazing guy. A wonderful man, unsung hero, if you will. Barbara, thank you for sharing. Give me his name one more time.
Jerry Paul Clousing.
Jerry Paul Clousing. And, thank you. And we thank Jerry Paul. And, these guys make the world go round. And, we thank you also for all the wisdom you impart upon us. Thank you, Barbara. And I'll be right back.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
How's Rudy doing? He's good to go? He's here? All right, excellent. Rudy Giuliani, America's mayor, standing by. Late last week I reported I was one of the few people, quite frankly, in the world. I don't know why the hell everybody acts like such a snob or they bury their head in the sand about this stuff. but Joe Biden's sister-in-law wrote Joe Biden a check for $40,000 sometime in 2018. It's totally weird. It totally destroys, obliterates the argument that never did business with the family or talked business. They're in business like crazy, getting loans. These are kickbacks, we think. It's very suspicious at the very least. And that so much of the media will not acknowledge it, even conservative media. Now, Fox News, I watched that Fox News Sunday show over the weekend. Shannon Bream, Living the Bream. What a silly name for a podcast. I'm Living the Bream. She didn't even mention it. She's just so tickled to be there, and she's very much a corporate type. You know, we'll hear from Democrats and Republicans. We'll hear from never Trumpers and never Trumpers. $40,000. Very, very. All right. I gotta split, but I'm curious, very quickly. Carlotta, yeah?
Hi. Two things.
One, I don't have time.
I'll try. From that Breaking Biden book, what about when he was talking about how hot his dead wife was? You'll have to talk about that next week. Well,
I know what he said. Yeah, in the Kitty Kelly interview from 1974, he went on and on about how much sex he had with his wife, and I mean, it was just inappropriate. Oh, he also told an anti-Semitic joke in that article. I know. He said, yeah, my wife's a babe. Yeah, all that stuff. It was too much. Carlotta, thank you. Call me back tomorrow. Natalie is in Setauket. Hello.
Hi, Greg. I just wanted to tell you really quick. I grew up in Hempstead, lived there for 30 years until I got married, lived there in Baldwin for another 30.
Slow down. Yeah.
Adam is not right. Adam is not from Mineola. If he's from Hempstead, they are not close.
Well, wait a second. I've debunked Adam being from Mineola, as you've done, and he continues to insist that he's from Mineola, but he acknowledges that he's actually in Hempstead. Hempstead is very close to Mineola.
Yeah, it's not that close.
It's pretty close.
You got to go all the way through Garden City first.
Well, how far do you think that is? That's like 2 miles. It's pretty close. It's about 2 miles.
But to say that you're from Mineola when you're all the way from...
Natalie, I already gave him a hard time about this. I mean, you heard me. I busted his chops playfully. I mean, not playfully. I don't want to talk about playfully and chops, but anyway, you know what I mean. I gave him a hard time. He still says he's from Mineola. And let me look at this. It is 2.2 miles from the Hempstead line to the Mineola line on Franklin Avenue. Exactly.
Well, it makes two questions. It makes me wonder why he's saying Mineola instead of Hempstead.
Well, I mean, what? I got to go. There's the music. Hey, Natalie, thank you very much. Adam's a good guy. I know he fibs here and there. But anyway, to be continued. Many thanks.